Hi everybody, welcome to another video in Math 1332, section 8.6, section 8.7. On these two sections, I combine the car payments and the house payment together. So pretty much in some form of payment, and this is the payment in the installment loan. So this is the type of different. So we borrow some money, yes, but then when we make the payment, it is in fixed installment loan with the payment amount PMT with given by this formula. But just like the end of the previous section, we won't be able to do all of the calculation for every quantity, so we just have to use the calculator. And in the calculator in particular, we use the Finance app, and so that particular calculator, that one, right. So if we want to calculate the payment amount, we can use that. The principal of a loan, the interest rate, and is how many times it is compounded a year, and T is in year. So all of the quantities is the same as the previous section. Right, now, look at this. Suppose that you decide to borrow 20,000 for a new car, and you can select one of the following loans. A 3 years 7%. Right, so let's just write out. We use a formula first, and then we use a calculator later. Right, the interest rate 7%, and of course we want to write that as a decimal. If we use a calculator, that's going to be just the 7. 3 years. And the principal of 20,000. So 20,000. Right. So calculate the payment amount. Just that. Principal rate over n, 1 minus 1 plus r over n over negative nt. $20,000 principal, and the rate 0.07. And this is monthly payment, so n is equal to 12. And for 2 years. Right, we put all that in the calculator. Right, I have a fraction times, and then another fraction. I'll just enter just enter exactly as I see it. Okay, let's do that again. A fraction 0.07 divided by 12. Right, so that's the top. At the bottom, 1 minus 1 plus a fraction. Right, and we have 617.54. Right, again, that looks like reasonable if, because we multiply this by 617, that's roughly we borrow for 3 years, right? And so 12 payments a year. So the total is about that much, which is comparable to this. So that looks reasonable. Right, Now if we use the calculator, use the app in particular, Finance TVM Solver. So N we know going to be 3 years and 12 times a year with that. Interest rate 7, just type 7. The present value, right now we borrow 20,000 actually. They give us 20,000, so we have that in our pocket. Payment we don't know, just leave it like that. Future values is 0, we don't have anything. And then 12 times a year, right? 12 times a year, 36 payment total, 7% interest, present values. Now we just need to solve for the payment. So highlight this in the payment, alpha, and we have 617.54. That's exactly what we have there. The negative sign here indicate that this is the payment that we have to make. The 20,000 is something we get, is positive, and something we have to pay back is negative. Right, so that makes sense. And so I'm just going to use that for the next problem. For the loan B, just going to fill out, and this is for 5 years and 9% interest. So 5 years, 12 times a year, so that's 60. The interest rate 9%. And the present values negative 20,000, positive 20,000. Payment we don't know. Future values 0, and then the other is 12. Right. So what we need to do is just highlight this alpha, and we're done. So pretty much put that, and alpha, and negative 415. Round to the pennies, 17 cents. Right. Of course, even though the interest is higher, but we pay in 5 years, the longer time, the payment is less. Now compare the monthly payment and the total. Right. So for loan A, the payment is 617.54, and then the total, of course we have to multiply. Let's go to the normal calculator, second mode. 617.54, and we have to multiply for 3 years, for 12 times a year. So the total $22,231 minus the 20,000 we have original of the car, and so the total interest. Subtract them, we have $2,231 in interest. Right, for loan B, payment is for 15.17. So the total this is for 5 years and 12 times a year. $24,910.20. Subtract the 20,000. We have 4,000, only 44 cents. For the other one, sorry. Right, so that's $4,910.20. Of course, the interest is more, the time is a longer time, so the interest should be more in this case, but the monthly payment though is less. So sometimes we have to settle to this because we cannot afford that. Right. I work at the same type of car payment again, but this time we have all the terminology here. The amount finance. Amount finance is the amount that the borrower will pay the interest on. So that's the price of the item minus the down payment. So for example, if the house or a car, let's say it is 100,000 and we make a down payment of $10,000, the amount finance is the $90,000 we have to borrow. So the price minus the down payment is the amount finance. And then the total installment price is everything that we pay, and the finance charge is everything we pay minus the price of the item. Right, let's look at this. Kat bought a 2-year-old Genesis for $24,650. Her down payment was $6,000. So, and then she will pay for 48 months. Find the amount finance, the total installment price, and the finance charge. Right. So in this case, let's just go amount finance. The price of the item minus down payment. Just want to write that to simplify things. The price $24,650 minus the down payment of $6,000. I can do this by hand, but it's nice to store this number in the calculator. So 18,650. So that means we have to borrow the bank that much, and that is the amount finance. Next, the installment price. So the down payment is the payments. This is all the payments plus the down. So the payment is for 14 for 48 months plus the down of 6,000. With $25,872. So that's the installment price. And finally, the finance charge. So like the total interest that we pay. So installment price minus the price of the item. $24,650. So this number minus 24,650 right. So that's some terminology and how to calculate them. Right. The next part is we talk about the leasing alternative. Like I said, you can just read it. We will go to the problem here. This is the problem. Suppose that you are thinking about buying a car and have narrowed down 2 choices here. The first choice, the car costs $25,000 and financed for 4 years at 7.9%. And then the used car option the same car costs that much and can be financed 4 years, 8.45%. What is different in payment between the finance new car and finance the used car? Right. So I'll just do for both of them. So this is the new car option. Let me write out the price, the principal, 25,000. It said that we do not down anything here, 0 down. Finance 4 years at the rate 7.9%. So I'm going to use the finance app and to calculate the payments for each of the scenarios. Right. And this is 4 years and monthly payment, so 12 times a year. Interest rate 7.9. Present values, we need 25,000. Payment, don't know. Future, there's none. 12. Right, so we will calculate the payment alpha y equal 609. So that makes sense. And then the used car. The price, the principal is only 14,000. And financing 4 years, and the rate 8.45. Right. Again, 4 years, 12 times a year, 8.45. The present values only 14,000. The last two will be unchanged, so we just need to calculate the payment here, alpha y. So that's 344. Alright, so we have two payment there. So what is the question? What is different in monthly payment? Also we calculate. And financing the new car and financing the used car. Right? Since we do not make any down here, just multiply by 48. Payment for both cases. So 609.15 times 48. Well, that's 29,239 and 20 cents. If we subtract, there's no down payment here, so we subtract the 25,000 originally. That will be the finance charge, the total interest that we pay. And on this side, and then subtract the 14,000. Right. So of course, in this case we borrow less because the interest would, even though the interest a little more here, but because we borrow less. In this case, only 14,000 compared to that, the interest will be less. Of course, now it just depends on the preference of each person. You might want to go with this option, or you want to go with that option, because that's totally choice. And then you can read the note to see the comparison of the two. Right. Next we go to the mortgage. Mortgage payment. So just like the car payment, except there may be a lot of different things. And also, there, because usually the payment for the mortgage is in a longer time, maybe 15 years or higher, or longer. So in that case, the rate may be fixed rate or variable, or the rate may change from time to time. Right. But the formula is still the same though. Right. So let's look at this example. The price of the home is that much. The bank requires 10% down payment and 2 points at the closing cost. So that means you have to pay the fee for 2% at the closing cost. 2% of the house. And the cost is 30 years and 7.5%. Well, that's very high interest rate for a house, especially on 30 years. Right. Now, find the required down payment. So the down payment, 10% of that. I don't even need the calculator for that. Just move decimal place, one to right. So the amount of the mortgage. So that means we're going to take this, subtract that. So subtract the down payment. How much must be paid for the 2-point closing cost? So at this time, we depends on the situation. You can pay that separately, or you can take that 2% and add it to this too, and you finance that also. But this problem look like that we're going to pay that separately. So that 2% of the house, 2 points. I show that. Right. Now find the monthly payment. So let's assume that we have to pay that separately, and that does not include in the amount that we finance here. Right. So 30 years, 12 times a year. So that 360 payment total. The interest rate 7.5%. And we need to have $175,500. Payment we don't know, future value 0, and this at 12. So that's good. Now just need to calculate the payment. Alpha y equal Right, if we hit alpha and solve, and we have negative 1227.12. So that much. So what is the monthly payment? $1,227.12. So that, like I said, usually high for that small amount. You'll see why in a minute, because 7.5 is a very high interest rate. I'm not sure now, but a few years ago that was way high. Okay, so we make that payment, right? For 30 years, 12 times a year. So that for the total interest, right? So we have to do that. Right, let me do this real quick. Times 30. Right, so we actually pay that for 30 years. And then we have to subtract the money we need when we buy the house. So of course the amount that we pay for interest is a lot more than the house itself, but that of course due to the 7.5% is a little high, actually very high for the mortgage rate. Alright, so we have that wrong. Right, the next part of the section is the loan amortization, meaning how long does it take to pay off something. Right, how long does it take to pay off that in 10 years? As soon as I read that, I know there's something wrong here. It said how long does it take to pay off that in 10 years? Of course, the answer for that is 10 years, right? So, let's say in 10 years, meaning that we have probably about 600 every year, so 50, it's good. So let's say we make 6.8% interest. Let's say we make the payment of $75. Right, let me rewrite the question. That is terrible. How long does it take to pay off? At 6.8% interest and payment equal to $78 a month. Right, so for this we just go back to the apps, finance app. We don't know what it is for n, to leave that equal to 0. The interest rate 6.8. The present values we have 6,500. Payment we do know is 78. Right, we met the payment, so it have to be negative 78. Future value 0, 12, 12. Right, so that's all good there. And alpha solve for n, so we have 113. And then we have to divide by 12 because this is monthly payment. And we have 9. So if we divide by 12, we have 9.42 and in years. So what is the 0.42? So that's roughly 9 months. So 9 years and 5 months. Right. Next, after one hit single, a young singer unwisely decided that she needed a 2.2 million home, and with some of the proceeds from her CD, she put out that payment and leave that to finance. Okay, because that's the house down payment subtract, so she need to borrow this much from the bank. 6% interest, a bit high for 20 years. Right. So let's just write out this n equal to the interest rate, present values, payment, present values, future values, and period a year, or compounded period a year. Right. How many payment we have a year, or how many payment we make a year, and how many compounding period we have a year. Those two are the same. Right. And for 20 years, and monthly, so 12 times a year. $240. The interest rate 6%. The present values so that C need 1.7 millions. The payment, that's what we calculate. Leave 0 now for a moment, because that's 12. Well, nothing in the future values, because we're going to solve for payments. Alpha L. Right, that gives us 12,179.33. Alright, of course that's a bit high for payment. Right, so we have that. Next, compute the first 2 months of the amortization schedule for the loan in the previous example. Now, so this is the payment we make every month, but how that goes, I mean, how much do we apply that amount to the principal, how much to apply that to the interest, we'll see. Right, so the first month we're going to pay this much, but now let's calculate originally. So this is for the first month. The interest is 6% compounded 12 times a year. Sorry, 6% compounded 12 times a year. We should divide by 12. Right. So, I don't know. 6% divided by 12. Sorry. Right, that. So that is the interest for 1 month. So originally the amount is 1.7 million, right? Times that. So the interest for the first month is 8,500. Is 0.2 0.005 times 1.7 millions, that's 8,500. Right, so if we need to pay that much for interest for the first month, subtract from this, we have the amount going to the principal. We're going to take 12,179.33 minus the amount that go to interest. So we, after the first month, we only make this much to the principal. And when we subtract this from the 1.7 millions, so that is the balance after first month. So 1,620,320.67. Right, so that's the first month. Okay, so when we see the first bill, we'll see that. Now the second month. The interest now based on that. We still pay for that. We have that times so the interest now we pay a little less than the first month by $19 compared to the first month. If that is the one that go to interest, now to principal. Is 12,179.33. That's the payment amount minus that go to interest, and we have 3,697. So a little more go to the principal this time, but not by much. And then the balance. Of course, if we pay some of that, we're going to take the previous balance minus what we apply to the principal this time. So we just have, this is the previous balance. Subtract what applied to the principal this time. And so after 2 payments, we left with this much. So that is called the amortization schedule. Of course, we can generate this for this case 20 years, so we can generate for 240 of those things. Anyway, so with that, section 8.6 and section 8.7, and the rest of course you need to read the note. As always, thank you for watching, and see you in another video in Math 1332.